Well, hello everybody! It's been a while. You're probably wondering what this is, and honestly, I was just messing around on YouTube the other day and I found this guy, I forgot his name but I'll try to link it in the description, where he makes weekly videos where he updates his channel on the paintings that he's done. And I kinda want to start doing it. Not so much for just wanting to make content, but mainly just to have a visual record of all the things that I've painted across, my hobby lifestyle. So I'll try to do this I think once a week, every other week, or some kind of variation once I felt that I've painted or made enough things. So if it's not just going to be miniature painting, it's going to be if I make a piece of terrain, if I'm painting a model, or I 3D printed something specific, I'll try to make it into the video. As for today, I'm going to show y'all what I've been painting for the past week, and it is these Stormcast Eternal models, and more. I actually got a whole army printed up. I wanted to try my hand at these guys, since I've looked at these Stormcast Eternals for years now as a strict upgrade to Space Marines to me. They're supposed to be the Space Marines of Age of Sigmar, but they just feel better, right? Even this basic infantry unit just has so much more personality in it than most Space Marines do, in my opinion. And as for the color scheme, I actually had my Twitter followers vote on a color scheme for them, because I kind of got into a little bit of a rut when it came to army building. Because if you've known me for a while, you know that I like to put gold, black, and white on everything. So I tried to come up with a bunch of schemes that didn't include white, gold, or black, and I couldn't think of any. So I went on YouTube, I went on Twitter, asked a couple people around, and they gave me this combination of a light magenta, teal, and bronze for the armor stance for these guys. And looking at it, I kind of fell in love with the way the color scheme came out. I've been using a really weird technique when it comes to actually doing the shading for these, and that's using Army Painter speed paints to lay down the base coat of the armor, and then while the speed paints are still wet, I'll take dabs of white, black, or any other highlight color, mix it into the speed paint, and then dab it, creating a really smooth gradient. Let me see if my camera can pick it up. Creating really smooth gradients reflecting off of the different sides of the model. And I think this starter thing, I just did one model to test out the color scheme, and I really enjoyed it. But I kind of had another idea going on. I had this color palette, which is a Doctor Doom inspired color palette. Whereas I would have the underlying armor be silver, and then I would have the actual cloth or coverings of the armor in the green that Doctor Doom usually wears. This green, it's not as vibrant as I wanted it. Since it was just a test model, I was just testing different configurations of green. So if I do this color scheme again, it's probably going to be with a brighter green that actually reflects Doctor Doom's cloak. And what I had a lot of fun with this model was not only using the green to do little gradients and highlights, but also the way that I was able to use this green paint. I'm actually going to show you what this green paint is, because it's actually one of my favorite paints to come out of Games Workshop. Give me a quick second. Oh, zoomed in a little too much. It's a Tesseract Glow, which I think it's meant to be used for the Necron models. But the way that it picks up and reflects light while still being relatively translucent makes it one of my favorite technical paints out there. And if you look at the way that I've done this, I've dabbled little bits of it on the edges of the model so you could actually see the sword glow reflecting off of it. And the shield on these models are great. This is one of the older models, so they don't have the updated refined shield from the, I believe, 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar. So it's a little blockier, a little bulkier, but overall I still enjoy it as an HQ model. So once I painted both of these up, I wanted to figure out what the hell just happened to my light? There we go. I wanted to figure out what the actual scheme was going to be for the whole army. And I kind of just stared at these two guys for a little while and couldn't decide which one to go for. So I went with both. What I'm effectively going to be doing for the duration of the army is I'm going to have infantry units use this magenta, teal, bronze style of color scheme. And then I'm going to have the HQ units, or any specialist units, use the Doctor Doom silver, green, brown color palette, as well as imbuing their weapons with the Tesseract Glow. so you can actually have a visual difference between the infantry models and the actual HQ models. After I did this, I realized I should probably start painting them because I have a whole army to get through. I think I have like 1,500 points of these guys to paint up. And I got these Liberators from the recent Scaventide box. Not the actual Scaventide box, these are actually all 3D prints of scans from the box. And frankly, I've never really been comfortable using scans because on the 3D software and Cheetah box, they don't actually look good. They have a lot of pixelation, a lot of blurriness. But now that I've had these guys printed and primed, you can't really tell that they're not made of plastic, which is pretty crazy that the printer can pump out detail like this. This was printed on my Saturn IV Ultra using Sunlu ABS-like resin, which really, now that I'm zoomed in, I can actually see the little sloppy bits on my painting, but regardless, getting this level of detail on the prints is amazing. And now that I'm able to, it actually was so accurate to the realistic models, it kept the mold lines and the little split lines that you would get from the plastic models when you put them together. Which I guess sure isn't perfect, but if you want to get as close to a one-to-one representation of the models, it's as good as you're going to get. So here I followed the same scheme. I used the purple and magenta on the bottom, used the teal and some highlights here, used regular just silver for the weapons, and then for the shield, I dry brushed silver over the teal that I did it in, and I repeated this for the rest of the models. I really like the way that the Stormcast kind of keep that faceless identity, without identity kind of aura to them, because they're just revived soldiers. But the unhelmeted versions, I ended up doing not as refined as I normally do the face sculpts for my models. Let me try to zoom in a little bit on his face. As you can see, it's not that great, but that's also because when I have so many models to paint, I want to give the amount of effort on the faces as I would give a regular infantry model. So like with an HQ model, I would focus a lot more on the face and other defining characteristics. Mainly just because this is the second time that I'm painting an army in one go. I painted my Necron army in one go, and that's a lot. Painting over 60 models at the same time is a lot, and it taught me how I should prioritize the amount of detail that I'm willing to give a single model. And when it comes to infantrymen, it's just I want to get it readable. You can tell that he's a blonde guy, eyes, face, mustache, and I'm actually extremely proud of how I managed to get the highlights of the chest and the armor in general on these models. And then I have the double-sided, let's zoom back out, the two-headed version of the model. Her face, I wish I could have done a little better, but once again, I was only trying to get it to the readable level. I actually had a huge problem here where I spilled some paint on her face, and it doesn't look great, but you know, the best model is the finished model, and I just kind of have to let it be. I painted the face last, so at that point, stripping it just wasn't an option. I had a bit of a resin leak here as I was printing it. It failed a little bit, but I don't really mind it all that much because it was just an infantry model. If it was a higher detailed model, I probably would have reprinted it. But overall, incredibly happy with how this turned out. And after I did this set, I started wondering how I should handle all the other HQ models, or how I should tackle like the big models, right? And then I realized keeping the green and silver and brown for the HQ models, while a good idea, meant that I could keep something even more special for the larger models, which is the God Doom color scheme from the Secret Wars comic line, which is where Dr. Doom had a silver piece of armor that covered everything and then had white robes and regalia covering his body, which was my attempt with this model. I forgot his name exactly, but I tried to give him that straight silver throughout, keeping that green magic that Dr. Doom usually manifests when he does attacks and auras. Keeping that, I actually wanted to do the Dr. Doom's color scheme because of this model, because I saw these two little circles on his shoulders, and they're exactly like Dr. Doom's little shoulder holders that he wears normally with his cape. white cape. I actually did this cape in a very different fashion than how I normally do. Normally when I do white capes, I'll do just a flat base coat of white and then use gray on the recesses and then slowly build up shades upwards to the lighter parts. What I did in this case is I actually used blue. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but I used bits of blue on the highlights of the cape, and it gave it a little more depth, honestly. And I think if I do white clothing again, I'm going to do that instead, where I'm going to choose a particular contrasting color to the rest of the model and using that for the highlights. This sculpt is actually amazing to actually paint up. I managed to get the Tesseract glow on the little lettering on the sashes. I should actually get rid of these supports now that I think about it. Overall, really happy with these models. His face, I tried to put a little more effort into it, but painting human faces at this scale is something that I'm still struggling with a lot. But I'm pretty happy with how I got at least the shading on his face to look like. His eyes are giving me a little trouble, and I'll try to dot them later, but I think he's just done the way he is now. But once again, just astounded by the level of detail I was able to put into these prints. Now, as to what I'm probably going to work on after this, what I'm going to work on after these guys is I'm actually setting these up for for a one-page rules Age of Fantasy skirmish game that I have with my friend coming up next week. So I printed up and set a little warband for the skirmish game for the Stormcast Eternals, which I think are the Eternal Wardens in one-page rules. My friend, though, he's playing a custom army from the Dragon Trappers Lounge called the Acolytes of the Primordials, which are these guys. They're unpainted right now because I'm probably going to work on them the week that comes or a little bit later. And they're an Aztec Mesoamerican inspired army based around dinosaurs, which is just fascinating to me because if you know me, you know that I love Magic the Gathering and I love Ixalan. So when I saw these guys, I'm like, these give me Ixalan dinosaur Aztec vibes. Thankfully, my friend liked them too. They're larger than regular human beings, like if I put them next to Stormcast. They're much larger, but that also makes sense because they're dinosaurs, so within scale, they function pretty much the same. But these are some big lads, and I'm not exactly sure what color scheme I want to use for them. Their armor is definitely going to be that kind of gold color, very bright blues, greens, reds, yellows on the armor themselves. But as for the dinosaur skin, not really sure how I want to go with it. I have some bulk Ixalan commons in a box somewhere, so I might just pull them out and then see what colors they do. So yeah, that's basically been my week painting and printing. Hopefully by the next time I upload one of these, I should have this whole warband painted. One Page Rules recently did a rules update, basically changing a lot of the values. So both of these lists are invalid, we had to remake them, but that gives me an excuse to print out more models, which, you know, is always a good thing. Anyway, just real quick before I leave, I just wanted to thank all of my subscribers on Ko-Fi. Ko-Fi? Coffee? I think it's Coffee. For allowing me to do all this. I wouldn't be able to print out the models that I can, paint what I can, buy the equipment to film, without my monthly subscribers on Ko-Fi. So just big thank you to all of them, big thank you to everybody that watches, and then we'll see how long I can keep this up. Night, y'all.